Every football club has a personalised strategy in the transfer market. Alright, maybe not every club, but most of them. It was only a joke, Edu. Calm yourself down. Manchester City have a strict policy of only signing fullbacks if they cost more than £50 million. Barcelona refuse to sign any players unless they will agree to be paid at least twice as much as they're worth, and for a number of years, Sunderland had an even more intriguing policy of only signing rubbish players who had terrible attitudes for extortionate transfer fees and then releasing them on frees. Surprisingly, that strategy didn't end up propelling them to a Premier League title, but no one can accuse them of failing to think outside of the box. In today's video, I'm focusing on teams with even more restrictive transfer and selection policies. Teams like FC Romania, from Hertfordshire in England, who compete in the Southern League Division 1 Central, the 8th tier of English football, and have a squad made up almost exclusively of Romanian workers based in the UK. Or how about the Indian Arrows, based in the city of Vasco da Gama in India, but run by the All India Football Federation, who compete in the I-League, which is one of two top flights in India. The Arrows, who were revived in 2017 after India hosted the FIFA Under-17 World Cup, are a team made up entirely of teenage Indian youth team internationals designed to maximise their development, though they are one of the worst teams in the league every season. Hopefully you get the idea though. So without further ado, here are 7 football clubs with highly restrictive transfer and selection policies. Athletic Club. By far the best known example of a team with a restrictive selection and signing policy, Athletic Club's somewhat controversial cantera and transfer policies have earned them both critics and plaudits. Whatever one's views might be on the morals of Athletic's system, you cannot deny that their continued success, or at least continued ability to compete at the top end of the Spanish game whilst maintaining such a strict geographic selection structure, is fairly remarkable. Founded in 1898 as Athletic Club, but often referred to as Athletic Bilbao here in England, or simply as Athletic in Spain, the club from Bilbao has maintained their unwritten Basque-only policy continuously since 1912, attributed to passionately held Basque nationalism among Bilbao fans. That means that for more than a century, Athletic have only played players who either came through their own esteemed youth ranks, were born in the Greater Basque region, or received their footballing education elsewhere in the region. There have been a handful of disputed players, such as Antoine Griezmann, who was said to be sought after by Bilbao in 2012, whilst impressing for Athletic's Basque rivals Real Sociedad. Griezmann has no historic links to the Basque Country, other than joining La Real's academy at the age of 14. Some argued that meant that he had been educated there and was eligible. Others claimed it was no different to a more senior player just having been signed by Real Sociedad. In the end, it didn't really matter since Griezmann showed little interest in joining Bilbao, continuing to flourish in San Sebastian instead, before joining Atletico Madrid. Athletic Club's signing policy does not extend to coaching and backroom staff, many of whom have had no links to the region. Despite maintaining this policy throughout an era of rapid globalization, where many La Liga teams have barely a handful of Spanish players, Bilbao are one of only 3 La Liga teams to have never been relegated. Along with Real Madrid and Barcelona, they remain Spain's 3rd most successful club in terms of trophies won, and they finished 10th in La Liga last season. Altınordu FK. The city of Izmir is the 3rd largest in Turkey in terms of its population, trailing only Istanbul and Ankara, and home to more than 4 million people. In spite of the city's huge population, Izmir has historically struggled in footballing terms, with just 1 league title for Göztepe to their name, which came way back in 1950, and just a few years ago, there wasn't a single team from the city competing in the Turkish Super League. This is attributed partly to the popularity of basketball in Izmir, along with a high density of similarly sized football clubs that has historically prevented any one Izmir-based outfit from reigning supreme. Altınordu FK are one such club, though they haven't played top-flight football since 1970, and even dropped down into the amateur leagues between 1996 and 2003. They are a team who are best known, to me at least, for having had the longest-serving one-club man of all time, Sayit Altınordu, who not only spent 27 years at the club, but even changed his name to reflect the name of the club when the Republic of Turkey's founding father, Kemal Atatürk, introduced constitutional reform mandating that every Turkish citizen must have a surname. Following decades in the doldrums, Altınordu embarked upon a new era in 2012 as the footballing operation split from the club's other sporting departments, and Sayit Mehmet Özkan took the reins as club president. His vision was to become a Turkish Super League team by the 2019-20 season, and to be competing in Europe by 2023-24 with a team made up entirely of homegrown players from the local region, feeling that Altınordu owed İzmir a debt of excellent youth development. 9 years on, Altınordu won 3 successive promotions in the first 3 years of Özkan's regime, but they missed out on their Super League goal for 2019. Still competing in the TFF First League at the time of recording, which is Turkey's second tier. Their goal is a noble one though, focused on the long term in a league where teams often do the opposite. And might I be so bold as to suggest that if you wanted a team from Turkey to keep an eye on, you could do a lot worse than them. FC Chtanovo Moscow. I devoted an awful lot of time to talking about Athletic Club and Altınordu, but there aren't many images of FC Chtanovo Moscow in the Getty Images database, so I might have to be a little terser here. Founded in 1993, during the same year as Russia's constitutional crisis, which brought the nation to the brink of a civil war, as their name suggests, Chtanovo Moscow are a club based in Russia's capital. A bit of a yo-yo team over the years, Chtanovo have competed as both an amateur and professional outfit, recently reaching the dizzying heights of the Russian Football National League, which is Russia's second tier, though they were relegated last season. Chtanovo are a club who have always focused on youth, providing Russia's national youth teams with a plethora of players, plenty of whom have gone on to become full internationals. When Russia's under-17s won the Under-17 Euros in 2013, 6 of their players came from third-tier Chtanovo, which was more than any other club, including any of the Russian Premier League powerhouses with much larger budgets. Described by some as a Russian Athletic Bilbao, Chtanovo only field players from their own academy, the Chtanovo Education Centre, and they regularly field starting 11s with an average age of around 20. Funded almost exclusively by the Russian state, Chtanovo have historically been lacking in funds, but never in ambition. And if you're wondering why I've used quite so many images of this woman, it is because that is Anastasia Pustovoitova becoming the first female referee of a professional men's league game in Russia, hence why Getty sent a photographer for that Chtanovo game and seemingly absolutely no others. Kimchi Sangmu FC. You simply cannot beat a good bit of South Korean football, a weird and wonderful world unto itself, and Kimchi Sangmu are such an interesting club that I might even make an entire documentary just about them. I will give you the condensed version for now though, and if you're not yet subscribed, you might as well go ahead and hit that subscribe button now for when I do, because otherwise you're going to run the risk of missing out on a documentary about Kimchi Sangmu FC, and as you're about to discover, that is something that you definitely wouldn't want to do. Kimchi is a fairly small city in South Korea, home to fewer than 150,000 people. But in 2021, it became home to a really talented football team, namely Kimchi Sangmu FC. Sangmu FC has long been the playing name, or part of the playing name, of a team made up of male South Korean footballers whilst they are carrying out their compulsory military service. In South Korea, all men aged between 18 and 28 are conscripted into the South Korean military for between 18 months to 2 years, before being placed on the military's reserve register, after which they will have to attend 3 days of annual training for the next 5 years. This has been the case since 1957, but it wasn't until 1984 that Sangmu FC were founded, creating a football club for active professional footballers to represent whilst conscripted. The team accepts an influx of 50 new players every season, thus maintaining a squad of roughly 30 players at all times. The end result is a pretty strong team, and last season, Sangmu actually finished third in the K-League, but were nonetheless relegated to the K-League 2, South Korea's second tier. That was due to their relocation to Gimchon, and the team that is owned by the Gimchon government and the Korea Armed Forces Athletic Corps currently tops the K-League 2 table. Chivas. Chivas' real name is Club Deportivo Guadalajara, but it doesn't matter how many times I hear someone else pronounce it, or how many corrections I try to take on board, I am well informed that I still manage to absolutely butcher the word Guadalajara. So I'm just going to refer to the club by their more common name, Chivas, instead. According to polling, Chivas are the best supported club in Mexico, and Forbes estimate that the club is also the country's most valuable, worth in excess of $300 million. Chivas' support comes in part due to their success, but also their unique strategy of only signing and fielding Mexican players. Many of those players are products of Chivas' own youth ranks, such as Carlos Salcido and Javier Hernandez, which is, once again, one of the most revered academy systems in all of Mexico. Chivas are 12-time Mexican champions, and they have twice won the CONCACAF Champions League, or the Champions Cup, as it was previously named. There have been hints in the past that Chivas may somewhat loosen their transfer policy to include dual nationals who don't represent Mexico, such as Eric Villa, who went on trial with the club in 2013 and then again in 2014. Villa was born in California and represented the US at youth team level, causing some controversy over his supposed signing, and in the end, Villa never signed. Like Athletic Club, Chivas' policy does not extend to non-playing staff, and the club has actually had managers from a whopping 12 different countries in total. Young Lions. There are a couple of clubs in Singapore with fairly restrictive and interesting selection policies, including Albirex Niigata Singapore, who are a satellite club of the J2 League side, Albirex Niigata, who almost exclusively sign Japanese players to play in Singapore, with the exception of Singaporeans who come through the club's own youth ranks. Albirex Niigata aren't quite as stringent in the enforcement of those unwritten rules as Young Lions, though, who play out of the Jalan Besar Stadium, which is also the home ground of Singapore's national team. That should perhaps come as a little surprise, since the Young Lions, as their name suggests, have very close ties to the Singapore national football team. Founded in 2002, 19 years ago, the Young Lions are run by the Football Association of Singapore, and they basically function as Singapore's youth team, but instead of solely competing at under-21 level on the international stage, the Young Lions also compete in the Singapore Premier League, which is Singapore's top flight, as a club side as well. As such, their squad is exclusively Singaporean, and exclusively very young. Their oldest player, as far as I can tell, is 23 years old. The Young Lions finished third in the Singapore Premier League in 2004 and 2006, but they have struggled a little bit in recent years, finishing second from bottom last season and currently 8th out of 8 teams in the league with just 13 points from the opening 17 games of this season. Club Deportivo El Nacional. Club Deportivo El Nacional, or CD El Nacional for short, are one of the biggest clubs in Ecuador, though they have recently fallen upon hard times. 13-time Ecuadorian champions, El Nacional, have competed in the Copa Libertadores on 22 occasions, which is more times than any other Ecuadorian club. However, the club from Quito's last trophy came in 2006, and last season they were relegated from the Ecuadorian Serie A. From their founding in 1964 up until 2013, El Nacional were run by the Ecuadorian Armed Forces, with a strict Ecuadorian-only player policy. The club had their first democratic elections in 2013, where supporters were able to elect their own president, but they decided to retain the system of only signing and fielding Ecuadorian players. However, despite their strict adherence to this policy for more than 50 years, El Nacional have fielded one non-Ecuadorian player totally by accident. In February 2016, the club signed a right-back named Rinson Lopez, who was said to have been born in Quito and who had only previously been contracted to Ecuadorian clubs. Following 41 games for El Nacional, though, Lopez made a shocking confession. Though his documents said he was born in Quito, they had been faked and were forged many years ago. The fullback was actually born in Cali, in Colombia, and was a Colombian citizen. Thus, El Nacional's 53-year record of only fielding Ecuadorian players came to an end. The club immediately cancelled his contract, and the Ecuadorian Football Federation banned him for 6 months. Lopez now plays outside of Ecuador for the first time, having joined CD Inter Ibiza in 2019. So that is it for today's video, but thank you all ever so much, as ever, for watching. Hit the like button if you enjoyed it, let me know your thoughts down below in the comments, and make sure you're subscribed and have notifications turned on for HITC Sevens. You can also find me on Twitter and on Instagram via the username at HITC Sevens on both, should you wish to do so.